As families are getting their financial aid award letters, they're starting to think about different types of student loans. And so a lot of families are starting to ask questions about, how federal student loans work, how private student loan works, and things like that. And of course, all the rule changes are coming as a result of One Big Beautiful Bill Act being implemented this coming July 1st. So recently, I got an email from someone who was looking to help their daughter pay for medical school. The parents had some money. They were, from all accounts, pretty wealthy, but they were worried about setting precedents for their daughter if they just pay for medical school or whatever. So there were a number of options. And so one of the unfortunate challenges of this situation was that if the daughter borrows using new federal loans, the amount of federal loans for medical school, which will be $50,000 per year, $200,000 aggregate, wouldn't be enough to cover the entire cost of this particular medical school. I think it's a situation that a lot of families are going to find themselves in, unfortunately. And so one of the things that the parents, as it was conveyed to me, that they did not want to do was co-sign for the loans because then the parents would be on the hook for the money. But unfortunately, there's really not much way around this because the daughter doesn't have income. She's going to be a student, and private loans do require underwriting, right? They require a good credit score or decent credit score, but also that you show income and have money to pay it back. And obviously, one way to do that is to have a cosigner with income if the student themselves don't have income to show, which would be in this case. But these parents also had some assets. And there are different types of loans that they could potentially take advantage of. For example, they could use what are called pledged asset lines or securities-based lines or whatever, or margin loans, and essentially putting up their investments as the collateral for a loan, much like when you borrow on a mortgage or using a home equity loan, you're putting up your house as collateral for that loan. As long as you pay, nothing happens to your house, right? Well, the same thing here with a securities-based loan. As long as you pay, nothing happens. Now, these strategies aren't without risk because your investments, could potentially go down, right? The market could crash or whatever, and that could trigger what's called a margin call, which means that you're forced to sell the assets off to pay off the loan. And sometimes these loans can carry a higher interest rate than other types of loans. But in this particular case, it might make some sense because the mom would effectively lend the daughter the money. She could make the daughter pay it back, but mom would not have to sell off the assets and incur potentially like capital gains or whatever, and also the lost opportunity cost of having sold those assets. So now they can't grow for the mom or the parents. It's not a perfect solution. Unfortunately, there's not a perfect solution in this particular case. If the daughter is really set on going to this particular medical school, and apparently the daughter did get into this particular medical school, so they're past like the stage of like looking at other schools or whatever. Yes, there are scholarships available for medical school. The daughter will have to really crank those out to try and get medical school paid for. It's not always realistic in a short amount of time. It's not impossible, but it's not always a realistic answer. My point in simply relaying this situation is that a lot of people just think about loans and cosign loans, but there are other types of loans that these parents could potentially utilize to make this work for their daughter, although there is really no perfect solution in this case. So I encourage you to think differently about ways to pay for college because oftentimes, and I've done podcasts on this, it can go beyond just either paying cash or using savings or using regular loans. There can be other strategies that can make this whole situation a little bit better for the family financially, even if they're not perfect. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay safe. And I can't remember my closing, even though I've said it a million times, but stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.